I'd like to invite you to a journey. Think back to a time when you really got lucky. How does it make you feel? Think back to a time when serendipity changed your life. Maybe that chance encounter, maybe that wrong turn that opened a whole new world, maybe that mistake that led to so many good things. What if we could systematically increase luck? What if we could design serendipity? This is the topic of this mini TED Talk, designing serendipity. Before we move to the meat of this talk, where I share a playbook on designing serendipity, please note how those words made you feel. Designing serendipity. Listen to your body. I'll close that loop later on this talk. So, for me to explain how this playbook on designing serendipity, I have to tell you first about my origin story. It happened 12 months ago, almost exactly 365 days ago. I was stuck in lockdown and I felt so powerless. I mean, the most powers I've felt in my life. I was supposed to be this guy who quit his corporate tech to be an entrepreneur. I'm supposed to be the engineer who goes into genomics and scales his bio startup. I'm supposed to be the master of my fate. But 12 months ago, I was a prisoner of my circumstance. Then one day, I saw the way out. I was not only going to escape my prison, I was going to strike back at this pandemic and contribute to this global effort against it. So we hear a lot about the variants these days. But 12 months ago, very few of us were talking about this. Me and my genomics network, we saw this problem because, well, we are genomics nerds. And since I'm from the developing world, I also saw that access to this ability to track variants is very uneven. And since I'm a project manager, in particular a 0 to 1 project manager, I knew that I could bring this solution to reality. So that solution was to bring low cost genomic sequencing of SARS-CoV-2 to the developing world. That's going to be my contribution, and that's going to be the way I'm going to strike back at this pandemic. So I built a team, a global team among my network of genomics nerds and students and professional scientists from all over the world. We got some funding. We partnered with a lab here in the Philippines. We sent them a low-cost sequencer and reagents, and we organized trainings for them. And last March, that lab made history. It was the first ever sequencing of SARS-CoV-2 enabled by volunteers. And based on that experience, we are creating a deployment playbook that labs in the other developing countries could also use to establish SARS-CoV-2 sequencing. And CNN says they will do a story on us, so they will be visiting here when we will do our next sequencing run, which is going to be in a few weeks. So this wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a playbook to design serendipity. So what's in the playbook? So it's really just three things, 3 steps. First, to plant the seeds of serendipity. Second is to notice and nurture the sprouting of serendipity. And third is to harvest the fruits of serendipity. So here, I only have time to share one tactic per step. So for this first step, to plant the seeds of serendipity, an important concept is the luck surface area. So luck surface area is essentially the you increase it by doing something you're passionate about and talking about it. So that's basically how you increase your luck surface area. And I applied this when I would read papers, I would take notes, and for me to increase my luck surface area, I would not let those notes sit in my note taking app. I would create Twitter threads about, like, for instance, a paper. And there's this particular paper which I made a thread about, and it went viral. And I remember that one of the key members of the Project Accessible Genomics team followed me because of that thread. And the author of the paper is now the head of the of a similar project doing the same thing, but they're funded by the UK government. So, and we're collaborating now. So, working in public, you know, learning in public, working with the garage door open. So that's one tactic. So for the second step, which is noticing and nurturing the sprouting of serendipity. So one key tactic is something I learned from this book called Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. So the central story there is her explanation of what ideas are. She believes, and she says she truly believes this, and this is sort of crazy. Ideas are ideas are beings from another dimension or something like that, and their main objective in their life is to be made manifest in this world. And for them to do that, they have to find a human partner to manifest them in this world. So they search the world looking for that human partner, and when they find the right one, they would propose their partner to, hey, they would say, will you be my partner in manifesting me in this world? And that is essentially when you encounter inspiration. It feels like that. Like it feels like someone approached you with this vision, and it's up to you to say yes, whether you not you will be the partner for that vision. And a key thing here is that the key thing I learned in this with this idea is the importance of listening to your body. That's why I asked you earlier to listen to your body when I said designing serendipity. So how does that make you feel? Does that resonate with you? Because inspiration does not speak to your rational mind. It speaks to this more instinctive animal part of you. So it's something one needs to learn. I learned that in the past years because so many good things happen when I listen to my body. That reaction to a certain idea. So an idea is great when your body is there's like a whole body yes to an idea. So that's one tactic you could use for noticing and nurturing the sprouting of serendipity. And finally, harvesting the fruits of serendipity. So one tool here is very practical. It's called the slack inventory because you could not get lucky without slack. and you could not say yes or even notice serendipity if you don't have Slack. So it's important to create a Slack inventory. So this is simply a table. You can imagine, and I'll share with you a link where you could download this table later. Simply a table where you see here some different aspects of Slack. Categories like time, financial resources, shelter, food, water, facilities, transportation, physical well-being, emotional well-being, attention, interpersonal trust. So all these different categories of Slack, and then you list down the sources of Slack for each of those categories, and you list down the sources of tightness for each those categories. So there's literally 3 columns, and lastly, the most important column is how do you increase Slack or decrease tightness. So this is the action plan, because you need Slack to say yes to serendipity. So those are three examples for the different um, steps to designing serendipity. So for the third one, an example is that this project I'm running, it's not for profit. It's like it's a pandemic response. I'm not making money from it. I was actually losing money from it, but it's thinking about the long game. This will open up so many possibilities for me. So this is not only the right thing to do in terms of helping out in this pandemic. It just makes so much sense to do this in terms of the long game of building a genomics business. So this is the greatest education I could ever hope for. And I'm able to do this because of a failure. Because, not my my previous business failed to scale. But it became a lifestyle business. I have time and it runs by itself. So I could pursue these other non-profitable things. So I had Slack. And because of that, I was able to say yes to this inspiration. So those are some examples of how you design serendipity. So at the beginning of this talk, we looked at the past. So now let's imagine the future. Imagine all the possible good things that could happen. For me, it's like this web, going outside and like just multiplying, so many good things happening. And here's the simple truth: 99.99999% of those things are things you couldn't plan for. So I'm a project manager. I'm writing a book about project management, which will be out in July, by the way. That's my professional background. And project management is for things that we could plan for. So if I have that playbook of executing things I could plan for, you know, we should also have a playbook for things that the good things that we couldn't plan for, which is majority of those good things in the future. So I'm writing the playbook. So I got the domain, designingserendipity.com. You could already visit the domain. And I go back again to the first when I first said those words. If did they resonate with you? What happens when you listen to your body when I say designing serendipity? So if those words resonated with you, please DM me or sign up, and we will do this, go through this journey together.